Hey guys, how are you? Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Listen, I was going to talk to you guys today about a unique experience that occurred with me. Started, well, I would say about 6 months ago at this point. And oftentimes, these type of experiences generally don't occur to most people. Well, they may, but they probably do. However, I don't believe many people talk about them for probably various reasons. You know, most of the time I think people would think you're insane. Honestly, the probability of that is high. It's true. You just don't hear about it for a couple reasons, because generally it's an earth-shaking situation that prompts it. Oftentimes it's a personal thing of, like in my situation. So what I thought it was at that time, I really didn't recognize what was going on. I thought it was grief. My father had just passed, but it was an emotional experience. But the loss of anyone can be, and that's the reality. It's always an emotional situation, and like so many other things in life, any change is going to cause things in a good or bad way. Now, the point of this thing is that, for me, my situation was different in the sense that we all experience and process loss in a different way, ultimately grieving, coming through it, and hopefully in a positive way moving forward, able to reflect on everything that we've taken with it and have a good time. Not having a problem with it, basically going forward in life. It's not something we look back on as a bad situation. But for me, I hadn't seen my father in 9 years. We were very much estranged, and due to that reason, I had a problem understanding why I had unique behaviors that started following my father's passing within about 3-4 days. And sadly enough, it didn't really, I didn't feel a great deal of emotional, I didn't feel anything emotionally at the loss. I was aware of his passing. It was a long death. I mean, don't get me wrong. I felt it. It hurt me. I mean, I'm not cold. But keep in mind, this is a man I hadn't seen in 9 years. And we, as I said, we were estranged at best. He had a rough relationship with everyone he knew. And I don't think anyone would say my father was a nice man or that they really liked him. I mean, seriously, in honesty, he was a tough cookie. He was. He meant well, but he was just so isolated and so unattached. He was emotionally unattached. He had always been that way. And I'm quite sure he had his reasons. But the point of this whole thing is that there was no love lost in essence. I mean, the loss of my father, but it wasn't like it was fresh. And the injuries really didn't seem like a traumatic experience to me. It just didn't. And purpose is all of this is that right after he passed, I started experiencing something that it was something that I had never prepared for. And I started having experiences where I was able to perceive things in a way that it was different. It was different in the sense that I wasn't depressed, but I did find myself maybe going through periods of moodiness where I just had zero tolerance for things. And other times I felt I was on top of the earth, that it seems as if it was a rapid personal expansion, and it was a growth that came from within. And so what separates this from just normal personal growth is a couple things. First of all, this was not just growth over time. This was an accelerated process, which was, well, from then to now, about 5 months. So for me, my process of what they call an ascension, it was much different. You know, everyone has a different rate. We all learn at different paces. We all feel differently. We all process those thoughts differently. They manifest in multiple different ways. For me, it was not a typical grief. And the grief I felt, honestly, wasn't that heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching grief. It was more of a sadness for what wasn't. Not that he wasn't there, it was just a sadness that is gone. And I never had that closeness with my father that I always wished I would have. He was a busy man. He was just a very cold, isolated person. He was just not affectionate. He was who he was, no fault to his own. So enough of my father. Back to the situation is that in the ascension process, which is what I'm here to talk to you about today. It's an ascension process. Some call it an awakening. It's a spiritual awakening. It's awakening of one's senses. It's of your total perception of life in every possible way you can imagine. You start to you see things differently. Different parts of you start to feel differently. I just don't know how to explain it any other way than, if you notice my voice right now in this, my voice, it's my throat chakra. Yeah, it's what it is. Part of the learning process also. I had a very emotional night. I processed so much information, and my voice now as a result of it. I woke up yesterday and it was this way. I'm really not sure why. Could be the dampness and the moisture. It's raining very hard here. So probably not. It wasn't raining though, but in essence it's the throat chakra, which was I've had several emotional days, and because of that is just strained. It's stressed. I don't understand it. It's I have to investigate it. This is kind of the experience typical of all of them I've been having for 5 months, almost 6 now. As I said, at a rapid pace. So I haven't really had a great deal of time to understand what's been processed. Generally, it's at the moment in time, because going back for it, I tried not to do that anymore, because that leads to misunderstanding, it leads to confusion of not knowing what I was feeling and how I was feeling later is really difficult, because it started out with the ascension process of looking back over time. And they say it's an awakening experience. Well, I was awakened. I am woke. Let's say that. I am woke now. The end result is of clarity. It's of definition. It's of emotional, extreme emotional. Extremely. It's a process of understanding. And even now, as I explained to you this, it's pretty crazy, because about a week ago, I'm on Earth, the planet Earth, and we're experiencing a process. We just went through a moon change. We're now in the end of March, so we just went through a complete rapid phase of our moon changes. It was a full moon, which is on the 24th, I believe, and as well thereafter, our moons have changed. Again, now we're at this point where, as of 2 days ago, 3 days now, I experienced another shift. And with that shift came extreme emotions. And part of this ascension experience is you get in touch with yourself. You are experiencing things and everything in life as it's the first time that you've ever felt it. But more than that, it's a time of amplified, completely magnified emotions. So with those magnified emotions, good and bad, becomes an understanding of who you really are, what you're really made of, and it's coming to terms with multiple sides of your personality, of the interior of your person, your psyche. Not necessarily personality traits, although I've processed a lot of those without giving it any attention or intention. Without the intention, it's taken place without. I haven't had to try on any of this. This is in God's hands, because it is a spiritual awakening. And parts of your body, they feel different. You notice just everything in your environment, everything around you, your vision especially, your hearing. It started with the hearing several months ago. That was the first thing I noticed, that my hearing was very acute, very in tune to sounds. Almost I feel like I could hear sounds blocks away. When I'm outside, I can hear everything. I hear people walking a block away. I hear conversations echoing. I hear everything. I almost as if I hear music all the time. And some say, I was just reading a comment yesterday on YouTube, and they said they're hearing Celtic music all the time. I don't hear anything in particular, music-wise, but I do hear it. It changed. The sound situation is only one situation. It's either music or extremely high pitch. And as I said, when I first started out, hearing was just mostly tangible objects. There were familiar sounds, things I knew that I was hearing. Then, thereafter, in the weeks following that, it was started noticing high frequencies, like there's a little pitch. Of course, I think we all sometimes hear a pitch like a TV. Well, if you can imagine that and intensify it, say, 20 times, that would be the resonance, the middle average, the medium of my hearing and my frequency that I'm at in terms of the energy level that I'm vibing at. You see, everybody has a different vibrational level, and it's grounded from the earth. We are from the earth, and we have that vibrational level that we contain within. Part of the ascension experience is our frequency seems to be raised. And I went from where most people are operating at. I know I myself probably was, sometimes, maybe more, maybe less, depending. Hopefully more, but as I say, probably about 3G. Most people function at a 3G level. That's the common thing. That's the Earth's absolute is about 3, but I am now at about 6.5, and my hearing is highly attuned. Even the smallest sounds of any repetitious, like loud cracking sound, someone shuffling cards, for example, anything like that, highly annoying. I'm telling you, everything is intensified and amplified. It's tuned up. The entire notch, the whole system, it's full on, switch on, full on, seriously. It's like nothing a person's ever experienced before, because there's no adjusting the volumes. And the truth is, you can't really adjust. You can't adjust your emotions. Now, meditation. Right now, as I told you, I had a very emotional night last night. And I work a graveyard shift. I'm just coming home. I just got home, and I decided I wanted to shoot this right now. Shoot this to you guys and see. This is actually my first time that I've ever done anything for YouTube. This is part of the ascension. I feel a deep need. That's why I'm emotional now, because I spent the last 7 hours in thought. I think more now than I ever did, in a way that I don't know. The awakening process is one that it centers us. But because the vibrational level for me has turned up after about 5 months, I felt it kicking up a notch. I started feeling more, sensing more, realizing that one of the things and the reasons that I'm experiencing any of the ascension processes due to my severe empathic ways. I am an empath, and many people know what an empathic person is. Highly intuition, the sense of intuition. We have a built-in bullshit detector. Basically, you can't fool us in it. In that sense, we'll let you think you could, but we know what's up. And part of that is an intuitive sense that when we come in contact with someone, we feel their energy. We take that energy, and it's hard not to. We sense where they're at here, we can feel here, and it's just a combined thing that it comes in. And we absorb their energy. So if they're in a good way, we vibe high. We feel it really kicks off. It really does. It's an amazing joy. It's an amazingly good feeling. But when we're not, and we're processing, which is what I do a lot of now. And that's why they call this, it's an awakening. And in this process, we stir up a lot of emotions. You're solving issues that you've had your entire life. And when I say issues, they are that. Call them baggage. It's what happens when people they go through life. We experience things for good and bad. And we process them or we don't. And many of us, I think we all would probably like to think we don't, but we don't process things. And death, I'm really bad with that. It's bad to not process it. Oh, excuse me. It's bad to not process it, but it's worse to not think about it and to store it, or what I call shelving it. Because when we process it, we inhale it. It's like eating food. You eat it, you take bites of it, you can digest it. If it's a spicy food or strong in flavor, probably little bites, and then you build up to it. But the reality is that if we think about something, I personally am fortunate because I can stand back and I can see it from a different perspective. I can look at it from a third person or fourth or fifth. Nonetheless, I feel that I have the ability to look at things in a very non-connected way. And that's actually a good thing. I mean, to look at things in an overview, I have the clarity of I can look at it different than most people. I'll just say that. It is a blessing because that has allowed me to probably to process things in a little different fashion than most people. And the things that are processed are everything from being 8 years old and remembering when your father told you he was too busy for you and you were 8. And my father was gone much of my life. Most of the time, he wasn't doing anything wrong. He was earning money to support his family. He was an honorable person for the most part, with the exception of his, well, let's just say less than savory personality. He wasn't the happiest camper. Married too young with too many children and too much responsibility and disappointment in himself and numerous other hang-ups he had that he never got over, never processed. Now, most people don't. We just don't, and especially guys. I think men are probably the worst at this because maybe we just figure if we throw them up there, or put them behind us, we're not going to think about it again. Yeah, it would be cool, but it's just not the reality. People have awakenings at different times. And I talked with someone and I was conferring with her, and she was like, this is something you need to share. You need to let people, you should do a YouTube video. It would be awesome for you. Let people know what you've got. And I said, well, what would I tell them? What would I tell them? I woke up and I was this other feeling person. And when I'm tired, I become extremely emotional. And when I'm hungry, it's just any emotions that you've already felt that you don't normally access, they come. You're going to feel them. It's like, for me, I've had a lot, probably like anyone else. I'm not saying I've had more hard life than anyone, but I've been through it and I've been back. And I went there again and I came back. So I've really been there. I've had time to, if I didn't process anything normally in the course of day to day, or on those days when you're walking on the beach, or you're having a quiet moment to yourself, I have visited that spot in my brain, and I've looked long and hard, and I have come to an understanding with myself about the emotion, and I've left it in a certain place of understanding. It's been processed. If it never was, so this as well is a person gets to experience it seems like the pain. I think I had a lot of good times and I've processed. I laughed, I didn't hold any laugh back. I never did that. I'd always laugh and enjoy. I've always been a positive, happy, pretty well-adjusted person, I like to think, for the most part. So, but the negative feelings, I'm awful. Awful, and it's been the hardest thing, because we're not brought up to feel pain. It's oftentimes a sign of weakness, and that pain that's part of life comes to all. Some people live a normal, so to speak, normal life, with the well-adjusted life. I have had more changes in my life, more periods of adjustment than most people. When, as I was starting to say, anytime there's any change in life, where you change your job, or you move, or you change your relationship, but those are all normal and necessary things to process and understand that new things are coming. So because of the change, it's good to be out with that and to understand things before you put them away. So for me, though, I didn't want to process so many emotions, and I have had a crazy past. I really have. As I said, everybody's had unique circumstances, but my circumstances have been extreme, drastics. And I have met such wonderful people. I've been so blessed. I really have. Here again with the emotion, see? So, my apologies. I should get some sleep and make the video then, but I start to think of how many people that we all come in contact with. I was thinking about this last night, actually. We all come in contact and have people that we know, that we are acquainted with, and some of those acquaintances become, I guess, friends to a certain extent, but then they really become friends after time. We bond. Those cement, concrete, solid bonds. And that level of communication that some people meet with connections that they have is much more intensive than others. And as much as I would like to say that I've had so many good relationships, I've had as many bad, because I'm a receptive person. But the real important thing of this lesson is that due to my empathetic nature and being an empath, part of this, right? Well, a very feeling, thinking person with extreme intuition. And now, since the Ascension isn't done, but it's almost finished, this Ascension process is varied for different people. Mind you, it's always different. But the end result should be the same. It is a plethora. I mean, big amount. It's huge variety like you cannot imagine. It's every freaking emotion that you've bottled up and suppressed. It's processing and putting all of those things away. So to say you could do it in an afternoon, I would have to say I'm not thinking so. No, I mean, I have been processing nonstop for months, and this information comes, and it comes, and it comes, and it comes. It's a nonstop process. It's growth, and I welcome it. So, with this growth and this processing is a lot of emotion, a huge amount of emotion that you're going to experience. Like it or not, want to or not, you're going to feel it. You can't avoid it, so don't even try, okay? Don't even. Because that is the beauty, okay? You see, this whole process, getting to know someone, getting in touch with yourself through this process, this learning of them and the impact that they have on you, that's what it's about. You see, there's so many things that are important in meeting someone, in knowing them, but more importantly, in the processing of where I'm at. For example, I look back on these things and I realize how freaking lucky I was. First of all, to ever come in contact with this person. And second of all, for it to be a good contact and to leave with a good experience. To be able to take something with me that was positive, not always negative. And that's due to my fortunate good heart, my nature. And some of you that know me would say, this guy's awesome, he's got a heart of gold. I do. But what I realized over the last 10, 15, 25 years of experience, from the time you're 25, when you're kind of secure, things start to occur, and for me, I started to get a little beat up, and I didn't process things probably healthy. And if I did, I don't remember doing it, because it seems like I've done 25 years and 25 days. No, I mean, I've done a lot of emotions. I've gone through it, I've sorted through, and I'm still going through them. The file it keeps coming up, things come up for processing. You see something, you realize something, it causes this, it causes that. It's made me realize how complex our brain is. It's made me how much that I see what I've been able to look long and hard to see my mistakes, the errors of my way, and many as they are. But again, processing, releasing those mistakes, once we embody them, once we realize that they're there, and that mistake is a problem for you. Because pretty soon we get all these shelves that we've just thrown these things up behind us, we just put them up there, and these feelings, we just want to throw them in the back. We don't want to process them. We don't want to deal with them because we know it's going to be painful. So we just kind of brush them off. We don't process them. In fact, oftentimes people like myself, we just kind of chuckle and laugh, but I can't say that it's ever gone. And I just spent the last 6 months cleaning house. I spent 6 months doing working hard on myself, as they say. A lot of hard work. And that is why these tears are a combination of many things. They're not tears, but I suffer from extreme emotion from what I'm talking about, because it matters so much. And part of this awakening process is getting in touch with the same thing. You see, all of us have a female and a masculine side to our personality. Yeah, we have those. And part of this process is if we were never emotional before, we are not going to process things very well. It's a learned process. Well, I have spent many years, 20 years, suppressing. I've been able to feel the pain, but very slight. And I would dive in for cover. I would not want to process it, and I had no intentions of it. But I mean, I felt it. I felt like I wanted to later, and I needed to. And it's, but through a failed marriage, through multiple persons in my life, and they all had importance in their own respect. They did. So I'm not downgrading, but the truth is that the Ascension experience is the most baffling thing, because what it's also allowed as a result of this expanded sense of knowing, and expanded, dialed up, is ramped up, and sense of intuition. I mean that I can sense and feel walking into a room, and if there's tension, if it's a tense room or happy room, that vibe is felt within me. It accentuates it. So if I don't come into your business, because of this or that, or don't call you, it's not because I don't think of you or want you. It's because of the emotion, and the emotion that's what I'm passing through. And it's an emotional thing, I'm telling you, because I'm sharing this from the heart, and I'm sharing this with millions of people from the heart. It's kind of embarrassing when I tell you that I truly have, I feel like I do have male emotions and I have serious female ones, but it's not like typical. I mean, it's not. It's, I suppressed those feelings, and I had a large stuffed animal, and I kept it in my seat, and so I suppressed those feelings, and I'd look over at that stuffed animal sometimes, and I would think, you lucky bastard, you know, he's just stuffed. There's nothing to it. You got it made, but dumb, I know. I'm tired. So anyway, the ascension process was caused by loss. So this loss was due to separation in ultimate reality. It's due to separation. And I have had someone very close to me and didn't understand the bond. I didn't understand this friendship that's called, well, it's a twin flame or soulmate. And there is a difference between the two. The twin flame is someone that's ascended with you. And yeah, I know this sounds crazy. It does to me, but through research, popular belief and knowledge, and what I feel now, yes, you heard that. What I feel now, I don't know anything in my life. I mean, I know how I feel now. But when I tell you I've had to rethink everything because it's been the will for me to finish this ascension process and do it quick. So I've been on fast track. And the things, you see, the emotions have passed. That sadness is gone. It's just, it's an emotion, it's an energy. It's someone else's energy that I'm feeling. And that's what I'm trying to tell you. It's an energy game. It's a game where you have to keep the energy that you have for yourself. And we feel energy from outside sources. And it can be enough to absolutely drain us and make us sick. That's no joke. And I told the gal that lives here in my building with a girl that I know that also lives there. And they both said, you know, you just said, you guys, you know, I lost track. Okay. Anyway, I didn't want to make this a long video, my first one. I really didn't. That and the fact that I'm really tired and we just, yeah. But this next time, I'm going to come back. I enjoyed helping, I enjoyed talking with you. I hope there's something that you get out of this. I mean, an experience is one thing, but a real experience like this is once of a lifetime. You know, people travel for experiences. They do things for experience. And they're aware that things in life make and leave impressions, creating an experience, good and bad. So, all of these things said and done, I